Betrayal cuts deep, but when it comes from your own family, the wounds never seem to heal. My wife, Claire, the person I thought I'd spend my life with, had an affair with my brother Adam. That's bad enough. But what came next? My parents begged me to forgive them and then demanded I support their new family financially. Looking back, this moment was the breaking point, but the cracks had been forming for years. To understand how my life came to this, I need to take you back to where it all began. Adam was born when I was 8, and from the moment he arrived, he became the center of our family's world. Growing up in suburban Boston, I quickly learned that in my parents' eyes, he could do no wrong. My parents, David and Linda, weren't cruel, but they made it clear I was an afterthought. Their favoritism wasn't subtle. It defined my entire childhood. In 6th grade, I poured months into creating a working model of solar system dynamics for the science fair. It had moving planets and precise orbital calculations. I won first prize and even earned a special commendation for mathematical excellence. But my parents weren't there to see it. They missed the entire ceremony because Adam had t-ball practice. Not a game, just practice. That pattern defined my childhood. My award sat unopened on the mantel for a week before disappearing into the basement. Meanwhile, the walls of our living room were plastered with Adam's participation ribbons. His C+ grades were celebrated, while my straight A's barely got a nod. When I got into an advanced placement program, my mom was more worried about how it might make Adam feel about his regular classes. For Adam's 16th birthday, my parents bought him a new car, saying it would help boost his confidence. When I turned 16, I was told to get a part-time job to pay for my clothes and save for college. Even at my high school graduation, they found a way to make it about Adam. I was valedictorian, but my parents spent most of the ceremony taking pictures of him playing in the stands because he was bored. That same day, I came home and told them I'd won a partial scholarship to MIT. My mom's response, "That's nice, honey. Did you hear Adam might make starting pitcher next season?" That's when it hit me. Nothing I did would ever be enough. I realized I wasn't their priority. I was just the test child, while Adam was their real project. At 18, I left for MIT with a partial scholarship, savings from 3 part-time jobs, and a vow to never look back. On the day I moved into my dorm, my parents left early to catch one of Adam's summer league games. They didn't even help me unpack. College was my fresh start. For the first time, I was judged on my own merit. I discovered my passion for software, architecture, and threw myself into computer science. By the time I graduated, my thesis on distributed systems optimization had attracted interest from several major tech companies, and I had 5 job offers lined up. Despite everything, part of me still hoped to fix things with my family. That's why I chose a promising company in Boston, to stay close. Within 2 years, I was leading my own development team. By year 5, I was the youngest senior developer in the company's history. My parents, meanwhile, were too busy helping Adam switch college majors for the 3rd time to care about what I did for a living. Then 4 years ago, my life changed when I met Claire. She was working as a barista while finishing her teaching degree, and she had a way of making everyone feel seen. I didn't realize it at the time, but she'd been leaving little encouraging notes on my coffee cups for weeks before I noticed. Our first date lasted 6 hours. We talked about everything, our families, dreams, and fears. When I told her about my childhood, she looked at me and said, "They don't deserve you. They don't see what they're missing." For the first time, I felt truly understood. The next year was a dream. We explored Boston's hidden gems, cooked elaborate meals together, and hiked in New Hampshire. Claire encouraged me to go for a big promotion at work, helped me prepare, and celebrated my success more than anyone else. 14 months later, I proposed. She cried happy tears and said she'd been waiting for me to ask. Our wedding was small, intimate, and perfect, or so I thought. My parents spent the entire reception talking about Adam's new job opportunity in California. My mom even interrupted Claire's father's toast to show everyone a text Adam had sent about his 2nd interview. I should have seen it as a warning sign, but Claire laughed it off, calling their devotion to Adam kind of sweet. For 3 years, our marriage felt like everything I'd ever wanted. We talked about starting a family, bought a cozy condo in Cambridge, and traveled when we could. Claire made our home warm and loving, filling it with photos of our adventures. and tending to a small garden on the balcony. She always said it was us against the world. Then Adam came back. After failing to make it in California, Adam returned to Boston, claiming the startup culture wasn't for him. He sent me a long email saying he wanted to reconnect and rebuild our relationship. Family should stick together, he wrote. Claire encouraged me to give him a chance, saying, people change. Maybe he's grown up. Against my better judgment, I agreed. At first, it seemed like Adam had matured. He admitted he'd had it easy growing up and said he wanted to make amends. After a week, I introduced him to Claire, and they clicked right away, maybe too well. Adam started coming over for dinner a couple of times a week. He brought wine, told stories about his time in California, and even defended me when my parents fell into their old favoritism. For the first time, I thought we might finally have a real relationship. But things with Adam started to change in ways I couldn't ignore. He began showing up at our home unexpectedly, sometimes while I was still at work. Claire said they were just hanging out while she graded papers, and that it was nice to have company. At first, I brushed it off. But the signs were there. Their sudden silence when I entered a room, Claire's phone flipping over when I sat beside her, their inside jokes, and their coincidental run-ins at the grocery store or coffee shop. Then came the announcement that changed everything. It was a regular dinner at home, of course. Adam was there when Claire told me she was pregnant. At first I was ecstatic, but Adam's reaction made my stomach turn. He didn't look surprised. Instead, he smiled with a strange satisfaction, like he already knew. From that moment, Adam became a permanent fixture in our lives. He made comments about how involved he'd be in our child's life and even started touching Claire's stomach without asking. When I tried to plan a romantic baby moon for just Claire and me, Adam found a way to invite himself along. The baby needs both of us, he joked. Claire agreed, and my heart sank. I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. One night, unable to sleep, I stared at Claire's phone charging on the nightstand. In 6 years of marriage, I'd never once checked her phone. I believed in trust and privacy. But something in me needed answers. What I found shattered my world. There were hundreds of messages between Claire and Adam dating back 6 months. They'd been meeting secretly at hotels, talking about their plans for a future together, and worst of all, discussing the baby, their baby. My wife and brother had been sleeping together almost as soon as Adam re-entered my life. The pregnancy wasn't an accident, it was planned. They had even decided to wait until the baby was born to tell me, thinking I'd be too attached to leave. I stayed up all night, reading every single message. By morning, I was sitting in the corner of our bedroom, holding Claire's phone. When she woke up, she saw the look on my face and immediately started crying. We didn't mean for this to happen, she sobbed. Adam just understands me in a way you never could. Then, she said the words every cheating partner seems to say. We were going to tell you, but we didn't want to hurt you. I couldn't even respond. I called my parents that morning, hoping they'd support me, but their response floored me. My mom said, Adam made a mistake, but he's going to be a father now. You need to be the bigger person. Think about the baby, your grandchild. They didn't just excuse what he'd done. They were protecting him, just like they always had. That same day, I contacted a divorce lawyer and checked into a hotel. Claire alternated between begging for my forgiveness and accusing me of abandoning our family. Adam tried to corner me at work, saying we needed to talk man to man. I reported him to HR for harassment, and security escorted him out. The divorce process was a nightmare. Claire and Adam painted me as emotionally unavailable and controlling, trying to justify their affair. My parents even supported their claims, telling the mediator I had always been jealous of Adam. My mom went as far as blaming me for the entire situation, saying, if you'd just been more considerate of Adam, none of this would have happened. In the end, Claire walked away with a generous settlement. Massachusetts law doesn't care that your wife cheated with your brother. It doesn't affect alimony. I did, however, manage to keep our condo and most of my salary. Now at 34, I'm divorced and completely estranged from my family. I've blocked their numbers, changed my email, and informed building security not to let any of them in. Some days, I question if I could have done something differently, been a better husband, brother, or son. But then I remind myself, I wasn't the one who betrayed my family. I didn't destroy lives for my own selfishness. They say karma catches up with everyone eventually. I don't know if that's true. But I do know one thing. I'm done being the family scapegoat. I'm done being the one who has to forgive, the one who has to understand, while everyone else tears my life apart. But just when I thought I had hit rock bottom, things took an even stranger turn. I thought cutting ties would bring peace. But my family wasn't done with me. About a month after the divorce, I was starting to focus on rebuilding my life when I received a message from the office receptionist. My mother, Linda, was in the lobby, insisting she needed to see me. She stayed there for over an hour, telling anyone who would listen that she just wanted to talk to her son. My coworkers, already aware of Adam's earlier workplace harassment, could see how uneasy I was. I ignored her and went back to work, but soon my phone started ringing with calls from unknown numbers. It turns out my mom had recruited other family members to hound me. I finally answered one call, thinking it might be work-related, but it was my Aunt Margaret. I hadn't spoken to her in years. Without so much as a hello, she launched into, "Your brother and Claire are really struggling. Adam still can't find a job, and the settlement money is running out." Apparently, Adam's affair with Claire had made its way into his professional network, and no one wanted to hire him. Every potential employer pulled their offer after doing a background check. Meanwhile, my parents had been paying for Adam and Claire's rent, groceries, and even Claire's prenatal expenses, draining their retirement savings in the process. My aunt wasn't calling to update me out of concern. She had a solution in mind. "You need to step up and help them out." She said, "You're successful. It's time for you to take responsibility for your brother and his family." Responsibility? For the man who slept with my wife and the woman who betrayed me? The audacity was almost laughable. I told her no, loudly. That evening, Adam sent me an email from a new account to bypass my blocks. It was filled with half-hearted apologies and thinly veiled requests for money. He claimed Claire's pregnancy had become high risk and they couldn't afford proper medical care. He even attached a sonogram image, as if that would guilt me into helping them. The next day, my father, David, showed up at my apartment building, claiming he just wanted to talk. When I refused to let him in, he stood in the lobby for 2 hours, telling anyone who passed by that his successful son was letting his brother's family suffer. That was the last straw. I informed building management about the situation and asked them to bar my family from entering. It was humiliating to share my personal issues like that, but I didn't see another option. The harassment didn't stop there. On social media, Claire began posting vague accusations about me, claiming I had abandoned her during her pregnancy. Adam chimed in with his own posts, preaching about stepping up and taking responsibility. The irony of him lecturing anyone about responsibility was infuriating. Even distant relatives and old family friends started messaging me, urging me to be the bigger person and put family first. None of them cared about what Adam and Claire had done. They only cared that I wasn't cleaning up the mess. I refused to back down. I started keeping records of everything, the emails, the social media posts, the attempts to show up at my home and office. My lawyer warned me that they might try to use the legal system to squeeze more money out of me. Then the worst happened. I received notice from Claire's lawyer. They were suing me for additional support, citing increased medical needs and changed circumstances. Last week, I walked into the courtroom, bracing myself for the circus. Claire showed up dressed to emphasize her pregnancy. My parents sat behind them, looking smug and self-assured. Adam sat next to Claire, wearing my father's old suit and pretending to be the picture of fatherly concern. Their lawyer spun an absurd story, claiming I had caused emotional distress that prevented Adam from finding work and that my vindictive behavior was endangering Claire's pregnancy. They argued that the original settlement wasn't enough because they had underestimated the financial strain. But my lawyer was ready. She started by showing surveillance footage from my office building, capturing my mother's theatrics, Adam's aggressive behavior, and even Claire's attempts to sneak in through the back door. Then, she presented screenshots of their online harassment and detailed their coordinated campaign to manipulate and discredit me. The real turning point came when she revealed Adam and Claire's financial records. Adam had turned down multiple job offers, claiming they were beneath him, and Claire had rejected a full-time teaching position so she could keep up the appearance of being a helpless, jobless mother-to-be. Finally, My lawyer shared Claire's prenatal medical records, which showed that her pregnancy was perfectly normal with no unusual expenses. They had been lying about everything. The judge's frustration was obvious. He interrupted their lawyer and said, "Your clients seem to have committed perjury. Do you want to continue down this path?" After a short recess, their lawyer returned, looking defeated. The ruling was swift. Not only was their motion denied, but the judge also reduced my alimony payments by 60%. He called their actions a calculated attempt to exploit me and warned them against further misuse of the legal system. The fallout was immediate. Claire suddenly decided she could return to work, and Adam took a retail job, his first job in years. Their lawyer resigned. My parents were forced to take out a second mortgage to pay legal fees, and mutual acquaintances told me Adam and Claire were constantly fighting over money. I finally felt like I could breathe again. The reduced alimony allowed me to rebuild my savings, and I started seriously considering a job offer in Seattle. Letting people face the consequences of their actions might not feel like justice, but sometimes it's the only option. I thought that courtroom victory would be the end of it, but my family had one last attempt at dragging me back into their mess. A few weeks later, I got an unexpected call from my Aunt Margaret. She was never involved in the family drama, so I was curious enough to hear her out. That turned out to be a mistake. She started with feigned concern. "Your father isn't getting any younger, Ethan. This stress is taking a toll on his health," she said, trying to sound sympathetic. She went on about how my parents were burning through their retirement savings to support Adam and Claire, even refinancing their home. Family should stick together. No matter what, she added. When I didn't immediately show pity, she changed tactics. "Did you know your mother cries herself to sleep every night? They may have made mistakes, but they're still your parents, and Adam, he's still your brother." I cut her off. "Are you talking about the same brother who slept with my wife, got her pregnant, and then tried to pass the baby off as his? That Adam?" Her response floored me. "Well, maybe if you'd been more present in your marriage, this wouldn't have happened." I laughed. I couldn't help it. Another family member was trying to twist the situation to make me responsible for Adam and Claire's actions, but this time I wasn't falling for it. "Margaret," I said, "if you're so worried about their finances, why don't you help them? Your husband's law firm is doing well, and you own 3 rental properties. Why am I the only one expected to clean up their mess?" "That's different," she sputtered. "You have a special obligation as Adam's brother." "No, I don't," I said. "And where was this sense of obligation when Adam and Claire were tearing my life apart? Why didn't you step in then?" "I didn't want to take sides," she muttered weakly. "But now you're taking sides," I said, my voice rising. "You came to me, demanding I fix the consequences of their actions, instead of holding them accountable for what they did." Then she played what she clearly thought was her trump card. "Your father's thinking of retiring early because of all this stress. If they lose their home, will you really be able to live with yourself, knowing you let that happen?" I didn't even hesitate. "No, Margaret. They're losing everything because of their decision to excuse Adam's behavior. And you know what? That's not my problem." She tried one last guilt trip. "When you're older and alone, you'll regret this. Family is all we have in the end." "No," I said firmly. "Self-respect is all we have in the end, and I'm finally choosing to keep mine." I hung up and immediately blocked her number. For the first time in my life, I felt free from the guilt, the obligation, and the weight of being the family's scapegoat. The next day, I accepted the job offer in Seattle. The timing felt right. The company was offering me a promotion and the chance to start over somewhere. Far from my family's toxicity was too good to pass up. Yesterday, my coworkers threw me a farewell party. These were the people who had stood by me during the hardest time of my life. One of them handed me a card signed by everyone, with a simple but powerful message inside: "Your worth isn't determined by those who couldn't see it." That hit me harder than I expected. For years, I thought my value came from proving myself to my parents, Adam and everyone else who had overlooked me. But I was wrong. Family isn't about blood. It's about trust, respect, and mutual support. The people who stood by me, my friends, my coworkers, and even myself, proved to be my real family. As for Adam, Claire, and my parents, they've made their choices. I'm not their ATM or their emotional punching bag anymore. Their decisions brought them to this point, and they'll have to live with the consequences. I'm writing this from my empty condo, surrounded by packed boxes. Tomorrow I start driving west. Leaving this life behind feels bittersweet, but I'm ready for a fresh start. Yes, in case you're wondering, the baby was born last week. No, I haven't seen any pictures or reached out. That chapter of my life is closed. To anyone going through something similar, remember this: your worth isn't defined by how others treat you. Walking away isn't weakness, it's self-love.